Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our award-winning Tipoff Show, Tipoff 2022-2023. Dr. Ron Poniewasz is joined by Professor Larry Kelly, a man who off camera just now said, I know a lot about good basketball. And we're hoping...
Get it right. I said, I know what good basketball looks like.
All right. I know what good basketball looks like. Okay, well, see, there you go. He just said it for you. He knows what good basketball looks like.
I know what it looks like.
So we're going to put him to the test here. That's why we call the professor, everybody. He's going to take us to school and instruct us on some basketball. And welcome aboard, Larry Kelly. You are a member of the Luxembourg, Garbutt, Kelly & George law firm and the varsity baseball coach at Shenango High School. Happy belated New Year. Hope you're doing well, sir.
Doing great, Ronnie. Thanks for having me. Great start to a new year. Being with you on the award-winning Tip-Off podcast. So I'm fired up and ready to go.
All right. Sounds good. We got a couple of segments that we're going to work on tonight. First one is going to be our athlete of the week. Our athlete of the week played in 2 games, had 2 really nice performances. And then we're going to have an additional segment, which is going to be a couple of moments that we're going to talk about from games that were played last week. So we'll throw some things around from those, and I will dive in first on athlete of the week. And it is going to be Laurel High's 6'2" senior guard, Greg Preisser, 6'1" senior guard. And last week he had 27 points in a 49-43 win over Eden Christian. And he followed that up with 17 points in a 63-54 loss to Mohawk. Both of those games were at the Laurel Holiday Tournament. So in those games, Priesser combined for a total of 44 points in those contests. And again, as Larry always points out, he had 27 points in a meaningful performance. That was a close game. It wasn't in a 65-12 game. That was a down to the wire effort in that game.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. He scored more than half his team's points in a close game. So that said something. I've always said, Coach Connie Palumbo, who was the high school coach at Newcastle High School when I was in high school, he always used to say, look, don't break school records in blowouts. If you're going to break a school record, I want it to be in a really hotly and closely contested contest. And not that Greg Preisser broke the school record for points, but he had 27 points in a meaningful game. And to me, that's the litmus test. That's the litmus test. When do you perform your best? When do you perform at the highest? And to have 27 in a 6-point game was pretty impressive. And then to follow that up with 17, even though they lost to Mohawk, is also, in my view, an impressive outing. Mohawk got a good basketball team. I saw them against Shenango. They're well coached and they're a good team. They look like a team that'll be a force moving forward this year. So, when you play 2 games in a week and you put up 44 points in 2 games, that's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive week.
For the season, Greg Preisser has scored 115 points in 7 games. That's a 16.4 scoring average. Laurel right now owns a 3-4 mark. So we're far enough into the season. We've had a little bit more than a sample size. We're past the holidays. We're officially into January. What does Laurel need to do to build around Greg Preisser? What have they seen from him that they can try and be complimentary to him, so he's not doing everything by himself, and to add some balance to that team?
Well, again, basketball is a 5-man game, and as a coach, it's easy to look at a team and say, we're not going to let Greg Preisser beat us tonight. There's ways to keep his scoring down, and when that does happen, and again, when you get into section play and there's film on you, you have to get other people involved, both from a coaching standpoint and, the player standpoint. Greg's got to get some of his other teammates involved, because you can't play winning basketball night in and night out if you got one guy scoring half the points. That's not going to work. Balance is the key. It's a lot more difficult to defend a team that has 5 players that can score. And, it's a lot easier to defend a team when you only have to worry about one guy. So I think, the key to Laurel, and I haven't seen him play, is, we got to get the other guys involved. And you got to get take some of the load off of Greg Preisser so that when it is time for him to score, it's a little bit easier because there are other threats on the floor.
Okay, Larry Kelly, I'm going to get myself in a ton of trouble asking you this question. First off, I'm going to preface it by saying I'm going to make you czar of the world. You are czar of the world. You want to be it. I'm giving you that title.
I'll take that job. Yeah, I'd like to have that job for at least a week. Let me fix things for a week, and we'll see how that goes.
Guess what? You're getting it for about the next 3 minutes for whatever you're going to flap your gums about with this. But you're a czar of the world for this moment in time. You and I are drafting a basketball team around the county or around the Western region, but we'll keep it to the county. And you're going to get the number 1 pick. That's where the czar of the world comes in. You have the number 1 pick. Are you drafting your team? And remember, Greg Preisser has quite an outside game. He's an outside threat. Are you drafting your team with the number 1 pick of an outside shooter, as somebody like a Matt Stanley or Greg Preisser, or are you drafting your team with an inside presence like a Joseph Roth?
High school basketball is about guard play. I'm taking a guard. I'm taking Isaiah Boyce with my number 1 pick from Newcastle. So there you go. In my number 2 pick, I want Jonathan Anderson. And let me match those guys up with 3 other guys, and I'm going to have a pretty good basketball team. High school hoops, and even at the collegiate level, it's all about guard play. And it just so happens, at least in my view, the teams with the best guard play are the teams that win the most. So I'm selecting a guard.
Yeah, well, guess what? You don't get the 2nd pick, so that's my.
Well, I'm just telling you, those are 1 and 2 for me. Now I'm a little biased because I'm a Red Hurricane through and through, and I coached both of those young men coming up through the system, and I know how special they are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So we know Larry likes the guard play, and that's how he would build his team. Because our county, we have good outside threats, and naturally a good inside presence with. As we talked last week, we have an Aaron Capalbo who has great size. Joseph Roth is a force down low. So we have a good balance in our county of inside and outside, and that's nice to see.
The game's changed so much. Forwards don't play with their back to the basket anymore. So there is something that is considered to be a center in today's game. What makes Joe Roth so special is his ability to score both outside and inside. And that's where the game's at today, Ronnie. The game is about scoring in transition. This game is about shooting the 3. You have to be able to shoot the 3. The game is about dribble penetration, even from a guy like Joe Roth, who's probably playing as a 4 in their lineup. At Newcastle, we ran a lot of dribble drive, and the very first pass we made was a pass or a kick back to the 4, and he turns the corner from the top of the key and makes a play. Either takes it to the hole or gets it in the paint, jump stops and kicks it back to a wide open shooter. So the game is different, and I believe that if you're going to be successful, especially at the high school level, you need to have 5 guys on the floor who can shoot it and handle the ball. Okay.
Larry Kelly, you are now no longer czar of the world. You are
Thanks. My reign lasted 3 minutes. You're right.
Yeah.
That's 3 minutes longer than I ever expected it to last. And the fact that you gave me the job for 3 minutes says something about, what are you thinking about?
That's why I say I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble. So you go back to your title of Larry Kelly, millionaire. How about that?
I'm not so sure that title fits either, but how about Larry Kelly, Newcastle guy? I'll take that.
There you go. All right. Well, somewhere in the middle, we'll work with it from there. All right. Greg Preisser, Laurel High School, is our athlete of the week this week for 44 total points in 2 games, a win against Eden Christian and a loss against Mohawk. We will be back with you for another segment, so don't go away too far. We'll do that right here next on Tip-Off.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other. Be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
Okay, we're back with you here on Tip-Off, and we're going to talk to you naturally about the game of basketball. And sometimes in basketball, you see a little bit that you don't expect to see, and that means a little fisticuffs or extracurricular activities. Last week at the Farrell Girls Tournament, I had read on social media that Newcastle's now winning 46-36 over North Allegheny, as tweeted by our friend Joe Sager. He's covering that game. Back to the Farrell Girls Tournament, I had read on Twitter that whoever Farrell girls were playing that night, it wasn't a county school for us, the game got canceled with about 3 minutes to go in the game for a reason that I don't think anybody has ever heard of. And if I remember right, two girls were arguing on the bench. They weren't in the game. They were sitting on the bench arguing. I have no idea what they would be arguing about. It could be anything, but it was enough that the referee had enough and said, you know what, I've had enough. We're just canceling the rest of the game. The opponent was up 40-something to 20-something, so the outcome was not in doubt. You knew who was going to win. It was just a matter of what was the final score going to be and how much longer would this take. Larry, have you ever been a part of something, being that you used to be the 9th grade boys basketball coach at Newcastle? You're the current baseball coach at Shenango. Have you ever been involved where teammates just can't get along to the point where, okay, no, I'm not going to even throw the fact out that the game gets canceled, but kids just can't get along? Have you ever been a part of that?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've been a part of, practices that get a little physical and, tempers flare, but normally it's over in 30 seconds. And, a good coach will step in there and remind these guys, look, we practice hard. We want to make each other better. But at the end of the day, we're still brothers, and brothers don't fight and we don't hold grudges. And this is over now, and I've had to do that a few times, because the last thing you want is for that to carry over outside of the practice area, after practice is over. But no, I've never seen that, Ron. I've never seen that. And you don't know what the circumstances are behind it. You don't even know if the coach was aware of it as it was going on. You're coaching the team. Those two women may have been at the end of the bench. But look, the referee has the authority to stop the game and call it. And sometimes that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, now naturally the culture that we understand with Newcastle basketball, we'll use that for instance with the quote unquote together. There's a bond there with the kids. Where does that fall on a coach that is part of that? And what does he or she have to do to, when they're by themselves, as a group, to say this can't happen anymore? We've got to do more things. Is there any activities that they can do? Maybe team dinner once a week at this player's house and another player's house, and what kind of activities can help grow a team's bond?
Well, to build that culture, it starts from day one, and it starts with the head coach, who establishes, what he expects or what she expects. Again, at Newcastle, we practiced hard. Those practices got physical. But we reminded the players, especially, the first team players who were maybe competing against some of the JV players who didn't get varsity time, that they're there to make you better. They're there to get you ready to play in the games against the competition. But at the end of the day, we're brothers here. And we ate together a lot at Newcastle. I mean, every time we watched films, we brought food in for the kids and spent a lot of time. I mean, we spent a lot of time eating in restaurants together before playoff games. Coach Belando at the end of the year always had, the end of the summer, always had like a picnic at his house where, everybody would come. So, and you try to develop that family atmosphere. And, it starts with the head coach. He sets the tone, or she sets the tone of a togetherness. I like to call it a brotherhood. I like to say, we have to be teammates that can count on each other, all the time. This is your brother. Can I count on you? You can count on me. And if you form that kind of bond, then normally if tempers flare at practice, it's over pretty quickly because you have formed that bond.
Sure. Okay, the other one that we want to talk about does hit home a lot more than the previous one. Is last week at the Newcastle basketball tournament, the holiday tournament for girls. It's supposed to be a 4-team tournament: Newcastle, Union, Beaver Falls, Stowe Rocks. Stowe Rocks ultimately opted out. I don't know what their issue was. Ended up being Newcastle Union on the first day, and then Newcastle played Beaver Falls the second day. And I can remember thinking, all right, well, they were supposed to be played at 12:30, and here we are at darn near 10 o'clock at night, and we don't have a game. And turns out when I saw the write-up, it said postponed. Well, then I find out later that there was an altercation, a little bit of a brawl, if you will, if you want to call it that, a fight, a skirmish. It appeared from what I saw, I think Beaver Falls was shooting. They had the possession of the ball, and I can't remember if they made a basket or not, and they were getting ready to head to the other end. And like somebody told me, Beaver Falls girls just, went to square up, and that was it. It was on, and people were leaving benches and coming out of the crowds and stuff like that. It's stuff like that just can't happen. I don't understand what would have led to that. But in today's day and age, Larry, it could be anything. With social media, somebody could get out there and say, hey, I'm coming for you. Mark my words, I'm going to see you on Tuesday at the field house, or see you Tuesday at your gym. Don't try me, because, if need to, we're going to finish this. See, back when I was in high school, we didn't have social media. So you didn't have that kind of stuff, that buildup. I'm not saying that that's what it was, but there's all sorts of explanations or things to wonder if that's what happened. Because from the film, it just didn't look like anything happened, that the girl just went nuts and said, we're going right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate incident. And I'm sure, Kara was very disappointed, that it happened. Mm-hmm. She's a good coach. I've watched her practices. She controls her team. And so I don't know what happened there, but it's disappointing. But it can happen, Ronnie. Basketball is a physical game. Mm-hmm. They say that football is a collision sport. Basketball is a contact sport, and emotions can run high. And, it's physical. It's a physical game. And, at times, young players, whether they be men or women, can lose their composure. It just happens. It can happen. From a coaching standpoint, you try to control that, and make sure that we don't ever lose our composure. We talk about that, but it can happen. And when it does, it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but you're dealing with young high school players. And as you say, you don't know what the impetus could have been. It might have been something that happened on social media a couple days before the game, mm-hmm. that led to an altercation during the game. So you just don't know. It's unfortunate. That stuff doesn't happen at Newcastle. It's, and I'm sure it's probably not going to happen again.
It did happen at Newcastle.
Pardon me?
It did happen at Newcastle.
No, it doesn't happen at Newcastle, though. This is an outlier, and I'm sure Kara's going to take care of this so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah,
I'm pretty certain of that. She's
and it was
a good coach.
Yeah, it was pure speculation on my part, with social media. But the point is so many things have changed since I was in high school. versus so many things that have changed from when I was in high school to when you were in high school, you know, so there's just so many more avenues to kind of wonder or speculate, did this happen? Did that happen? What have you? Because what I saw on film is there was a shot attempted. I think somebody grabbed a rebound, and it wasn't like the bodies were real close to each other. There was maybe a good width of a body apart. So it wasn't like the person could have been upset that, hey, you fouled me or whatever. It just, maybe this gets in the way, you know, a little bit of too much.
It could, Ronnie, and a lot of times the officials can quell that. You know, the officials can stop it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was, I went to watch Shenango and Mohawk play in Laurel's tournament. And, you know, there was a brief altercation right before the half. And before the second half, the officials, and Tony Court was the lead official, brought both coaches over before the half and said, boys, you take care of this, because if you don't, I will. And I'll start throwing people out of the game. You know, the officials, good officials can take care of that, especially if they see it happening on the court. And, you know, I don't know who had the game, and I don't know what was happening, and maybe nothing at all was happening. But oftentimes the officials will take care of it, or they will come to the coaches. The good officials will come to the coach, and he'll say, Larry, either you take care of number 14 over there, or I will. Okay. And if I take care of it, it's not going to be pretty, meaning he's going to give him a technical foul or throw him out of the game. And he'll say the same thing to the other coach. You go take care of number 12, or I will. I mean, that's what good officials do. They see it coming because of their experience, and they take care of it. But sometimes you don't see it coming, and, you know, maybe that was the situation here. But it's unfortunate.
Last week, I was talking to Luann Grabowski, Neshannock girls basketball coach, and they've got a few losses, and this all relates here somewhat. She had mentioned to me that one thing that they have to do on defense is talk better. They have to communicate more on the court. Well, what she means is talking amongst themselves, like, make sure you box out, go take this girl, follow her, you know, communicate defensively. Where are you with the extracurricular talking on a court, like a Patrick Beverly or Draymond Green? Because to me, that kind of stuff is just unnecessary. People running their mouth on the court and stuff like that.
At the high school level, on the teams that I've been involved with, you know, at Newcastle, that never happened. We would stop that immediately. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're talking about talking on defense to communicate with your teammates, that's what good teams do. They talk on defense. You know, we used to talk about, you know, I got ball, the guy next to you, I got gap, the guy behind you, I got weak side. We're talking all the time. That's the kind of communication that you want.
Yeah.
But but players that are talking smack, that didn't happen at Newcastle. It didn't happen at any level from 7th grade on. My guys were not going to talk smack, and certainly Coach Blundo's guys weren't going to do it.
Yeah.
Just weren't going to do it. As I told you, in the history, when I was there 12 years, I think we had maybe one technical foul in 12 years. And it happened in a loose ball on the floor, and, you know, but one technical foul, maybe two, actually two, I think, in 12 years. And the rule was, there's a technical, you're coming out of the game. And, you know, and the players knew it, so they behaved themselves.
Didn't Michael Wells get a technical for hanging on the rim last year or 2 years ago?
I don't remember that, Ronnie. I remember the technical last year. It was Michael Graham. Mm-hmm. He made a bad pass or something, and he bounced it hard, and it came out of his hand, and it bounced in the air. And he wasn't being disrespectful to anybody. It wasn't about a call. He was just disappointed in himself, and he got a technical. This was in a playoff game. I think, actually, it might have been 2 years ago in the game against Chartiers Valley. And I remember, Coach, you know where I used to sit at the end of the bench. Coach Melander comes down here and says, do I need to take him out of the game? I said, Ralph, this wasn't being disrespectful. This the technical shouldn't have been called. He was mad at himself. He bounced the ball, and when he bounced it real hard, it came out of his hands. But listen, if Michael Wells got a T for hanging on a rim, he came out of the game. That was the rule. I mean, that's what we did. That's what Ralph did. That's what he did. And so, you know, there's ways. John Wooden said it best. The best discipline you can issue to a player is put him on the bench. And, you know, at Newcastle, you knew if you got a T, you were going to sit right next to Coach Belundo. And that wasn't a very pleasant spot to be in after a technical foul.
Yeah, the communication that Luann's looking for is justified. You know, who's got this player, weak side, all that kind of stuff. You know, that needs to be out there. But when there's a dead ball or something, you don't need to be going up to somebody and say, I took you to the basket the last time. Wait till I come back down the other end. I'm going to do it again. You know, that kind of stuff is nonsense. There's no for that.
Well, listen, here's all I know. Malik Hooker used to come down the court from the foul line and tomahawk dunk on people. He never pounded his chest. He never stared at the guy. He turned around and went back and played defense. That's the way it's supposed to be done. And he did it that way. And, you know, that's where it started. That was 12, 14 years ago now. And, you know, he was the shining example of how you're supposed to act when you're the best player on the court, as he was many a time.
Yep. Clean it up, kids. Make basketball fun for what it is, putting the ball in the basket and playing good defense. This isn't a mixture of basketball and world wrestling entertainment out there, no matter how much people think it is. And that's kind of what we were subjected to last week for sure out there. So, Larry, anything else you want to say about where we're at this season?
Yeah. Well, you just announced that Newcastle has a 10-point lead, I think maybe heading into the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. You know, the next 3 games for Newcastle, I know North Allegheny doesn't have a really, really good record, but that's a good basketball team, and they're well coached. We got Butler on the road and Central Catholic at home. It's a real litmus test for the Hurricane, but we're playing really, really good. And as I said, I think we got the best 2 guards in the county in Jonathan Anderson and Isaiah Boyce. You ought to think about one of those 2 guys for athlete of the week, maybe co-athlete of the week, because they complement each other so well. And they've been doing that since I had them. I think it was 4 years ago I had them. So yeah, so that's what I'm telling you. Pay a little more attention to the Red Hurricane over there when you're choosing athletes of the week. That's my advice to you, Mr. Poniewasz.
Well, my answer to you is we had a list about like this long of who candidates are. Both of those kids were on the list for consideration for athlete of the week. So there you go.
All right. Well, good. There you go. You got to be more laser focused though on those 2 guys because they're that good. But yeah, the next week or so it's going to be big for Newcastle, and you know, again, there's some section play starts, baby. It's different. It's you're playing for keeps now. Yep. You're playing for seeding. You're playing for section championships, and the teams know each other well. The coaches know each other well. You know, so yeah, it's going to be exciting moving forward.
And I tell you what, I'm excited with Newcastle basketball, and you're going to understand this too. Newcastle is used to playing in front of big crowds, home, away, playoffs, what have you. And now you've got gyms at North Allegheny, Pine Richland, Seneca Valley has a decent gym, Butler, all these schools. I'm not sure what Central Catholic has for a gym. I've never been there for basketball, not that I can remember. But you know, these places are going to be good venues for the county fans to get down there and watch their team play. It's not going to be like Quaker Valley, where they're like 18 people can get in the gym and that's it. And you're playing in like Saved by the Bells gymnasium, something real small.
Yeah,
you know, these are big gyms, so they're going to get their feet wet in terms of playing in big crowds this year for sure. And our fans are going to get down there to watch those games. So that's going to be great for the fans.
And Newcastle brings an entourage, so it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yep. All right. Larry Kelly, sir, again, happy belated New Year. Happy belated New Year to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us. He's Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz. We'll be back here next week on Tipoff 2022-2023.
I became an attorney because I believe in hard work, fairness, and human decency. In a word, justice. Our workers' compensation clients deserve justice because in an instant, their hard work turns into hard times when they get hurt on the job. No doubt, life is tough, but so am I. I've been fighting all my life, and I'll keep fighting for you. I'm Joe George, and here in Lawrence County, it's personal.